My name is Arthur Donovan. I grew up in the flat, grey expanse of Akron, Ohio. In 1969, the world felt like it was spinning off its axis, but my own life was just stuck. I worked the line at a rubber factory, a place that smelled of burnt tires and stale coffee. I spent my days watching the hours melt into the grey slag heap outside the window. College hadn't been for me, and this factory felt like a slow death. When my draft notice arrived in the mail, that crisp white envelope felt different than I expected. I wasn't scared. I was almost relieved. It was an exit. It was a door to somewhere else. I thought I was trading stagnation for some grand adventure, for something that mattered. I had no idea what I was really trading. I had no idea that I was trading my old self for the ghost that would come back.
I flew into Southeast Asia on a replacement transport plane, packed in with 200 other young men, all of us wearing the same green uniforms, all of us wearing the same nervous expressions. The flight was long and loud. When the doors finally opened, the humidity hit me like a physical blow, a heavy, suffocating wet blanket that you couldn't breathe through. It was a heat that didn't just sit on your skin, it soaked into your bones. They moved us through processing, and I was assigned to Bravo Company, 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, the guys with the helicopters. That sounded good, I thought. At least we wouldn't have to walk everywhere.
They flew us out to a forward base they called LZ Falcon. It was carved out of the deep jungle near the Laotian border, a patch of angry red dirt baking in the sun. The men there looked older. Not in years, they were my age, 19, 20, but their eyes were ancient. They watched us, new guys, the cherries, climb off the helicopter with a look that was somewhere between pity and indifference. If these kinds of stories, the ones that get left out of the history books, mean something to you, take a moment to subscribe to Living the Stories. We are dedicated to keeping these memories alive.
I was assigned to Sergeant Elias Cole's squad. Cole was a lifer, a man who seemed to be carved from hard wood. He was quiet, intense, and didn't waste a single word. He gathered me and another new guy, a kid from Pennsylvania named Peterson, by a sandbag bunker. He didn't welcome us. He just pointed. "That's your hole. This is your sector of fire. Forget everything they taught you in basic. Out here, you keep your head down. You keep your weapon clean, and you listen to me. You listen to every single sound. You do exactly that, and you might see Ohio again." My first patrol was just walking. Endless walking. We moved out from LZ Falcon in single file, swallowed by the triple canopy jungle. The heat was unreal, and within 10 minutes I was drenched in sweat, my 80-pound rucksack feeling like it was filled with cement. The jungle wasn't just green. It was 1,000 shades of green, all of them pressing in on us. It was loud. Insects, birds, monkeys, a constant wall of sound. But the men in my squad, the veterans, they were silent. They didn't talk. They used hand signals. They didn't look at the jungle. They looked through it. Their eyes were constantly moving. I was still a tourist. I was looking at the giant leaves, the strange flowers. That was my first mistake. Nothing happened that day. We walked for 8 hours, set up a perimeter, ate cold sea rations, and then walked back. I was exhausted, my shoulders raw from the straps, but I was also relieved. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe it was just a lot of walking.
The third day, everything changed. We were on a 3-day sweep, deep in the sector. We were moving along the bank of a muddy, brown river, the air thick and still. The humidity was so high, it felt like you were breathing water. I was walking slack, just behind the point man, a quiet kid from Alabama everyone called Preacher. Sergeant Cole was behind me. We were moving slow, carefully. The veterans knew this area was bad. I wasn't looking, not really. I was thinking about a cold beer. I was thinking about home. And then Preacher stopped. He just froze, one foot in the air. He didn't turn. He didn't make a sound. He just raised his left hand. Fingers played. Cole put a hand on my shoulder, pushing me down into the mud. I crouched, my heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. I stared where Preacher was staring. I saw nothing, just leaves. "What is it?" I whispered. Cole's voice was sharp, low. "Shut up."
Preacher slowly, so slowly, lowered his foot. He took one more step, then another, scanning the path. He pointed at the ground. I crawled up beside him. There, Stretched taut across the trail at ankle height was a piece of fishing line. It was thin, almost invisible, tied to a grenade pin on one side and a tree on the other. A tripwire. I hadn't even seen it. My foot would have hit it. I would have walked right into it. I felt the blood drain from my face. Cole and Preacher carefully disarmed it. Cole looked at me, his eyes hard. "Wake up, Donovan. The jungle isn't playing." That wire was just the beginning. It meant they were close. It meant they were watching us. The tension in the squad went from high to electric. Every man had his weapon off safe. We moved off the trail, into the thick, thorny undergrowth. Busting jungle, they called it. It was slow, agonizing work. Thorns tore at our skin, and vines grabbed at our feet.
We were supposed to make it to a designated landing zone for pickup, but we were moving too slow. As the sun began to go down, turning the sky a sick, bruised purple, Cole made the call. "We're setting up here for the night. Find cover." We formed the perimeter in a small clearing, backs against a small rise of earth. We dug shallow fighting positions, 2 men to a hole. I was paired with Peterson, the other new guy. We were terrified. We sat in that damp dirt, rifles pointed out into the rapidly gathering darkness. The jungle sounds changed at night. The birds went quiet, and new, stranger sounds started up. Rustles, clicks, things we couldn't identify. Cole put me on first watch. 1 hour, he said. You see anything, you hear anything, anything at all, you wake me. Don't touch that radio. I stared into the blackness until my eyes burned. The shadows seemed to move. They seemed to crawl. Every tree looked like a man. Every gust of wind sounded like someone whispering. After an hour, I saw it. Or I thought I did. A flicker of movement, maybe 50 meters out. Not a shadow, but a lack of shadow. Something moving where nothing should be. "Peterson," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Wake up, I see something." He was instantly awake. "Where?" "Out there, by that big banyan tree. A shadow." I crawled out of our hole, my stomach in knots, and made my way to Cole's position. He was leaning against his pack, helmet on, but his eyes were closed. "Sarge," I hissed. He was awake in an instant. "What?" "I think there's movement, out by the big banyan tree, 50 meters. Cole got low and peered into the darkness, using a starlight scope, a bulky, strange device that made the world look green and ghostly. He was quiet for a long, long time. The silence stretched out, broken only by the chirping of insects. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure the whole jungle could hear it. Finally, he lowered the scope. "Nothing, Donovan." His voice was flat. "It's the wind. The jungle plays tricks on you, especially your first week. You're jumpy. Get back on the line. And stay off the radio." I felt a hot wave of shame. I was the new guy. I was seeing things. I was wasting the sergeant's time. "Yes, Sarge." I crawled back to my hole. "Nothing," I whispered to Peterson. "Just the wind." I felt stupid. I felt like a kid. I settled back in, trying to force my eyes to see nothing but trees. I told myself he was right. It was just the wind. And then the wind exploded.
It wasn't a firefight. It was an ambush. It was the end of the world. Green traces ripped through the air from 3 directions at once. A sudden, terrifying hailstorm of light. The sound of AK-47s is different from our M16s. It's a higher, faster, throat-tearing pop, 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 pop that doesn't stop. It just tears at your nerves. I screamed and dove for the bottom of the hole. Peterson was right beside me. Dirt kicked up into our faces. "Get down," I yelled. A stupid thing to yell when we were already as down as we could get. Then came the whoosh and the thump. Rocket-propelled grenades. A white-hot flash to our right, and the machine gun nest where a guy named Rhino from Chicago had been just vanished. There was a sound, a wet, terrible sound, and then screaming. A man was yelling, "Medic! Medic! Oh God, medic!"
Cole was on the radio, his voice suddenly calm and loud, cutting through the chaos. "Bravo 6, this is Bravo 2 Niner. We are in heavy contact. Enemy in the wire, 3 sides. Need gunships and medevac. Danger close. Firing elimination." A flare popped overhead, casting a terrible, flickering white light over the scene. The jungle was alive with muzzle flashes. I could see them now. Shadows, maybe 30 or 40 of them, moving through the trees, closing in. "Donovan! Peterson! Fire!" Cole screamed. "Fire at your sectors!" I lifted my M16 over the edge of the hole.
My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I pointed it toward the flashes and pulled the trigger. The rifle bucked in my hands, hot brass ejecting past my face. I just held the trigger down, emptying the magazine in one long, terrified burst. I wasn't aiming. I was just making noise.
I fumbled for a new magazine, my fingers slick with sweat and mud. Peterson was firing next to me, short, controlled bursts. He was scared, but he was doing what he was trained to do. I looked at him, and in that flashing, ghostly light of the flares, I saw his eyes. They were wide. He was just a kid from Pennsylvania. He turned to me. "Art," he started to say. He never finished. His head snapped back. A single dark hole appeared in his helmet, just above his left eye. He didn't make a sound. He just slumped forward. His rifle fell into the dirt. He was gone. Just gone. The first person I ever saw die. I froze. I just stared at him. The world dissolved. The gunfire, the screaming, Cole yelling, it all became a distant, muffled roar. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My rifle was in my hands, but I couldn't lift it. I was completely, utterly paralyzed by a cold, white fear that was heavier than the humidity, heavier than my pack.
A body landed in the hole with me. It was Cole. He was bleeding from his shoulder, but his eyes were on fire. He grabbed the front of my jacket and slammed me against the wall of the hole. "Donovan, snap out of it. He's gone. You're not. Shoot, damn you, shoot or we all die right here." He shoved me and it broke the spell. I picked up my rifle. I looked over the edge. An enemy soldier was 10 meters away, running toward our hole. I didn't think. I just raised the rifle and fired. The man folded and fell. I didn't feel anything. Not horror, not relief, nothing. I was just a machine. The fight lasted maybe 15 minutes, but it felt like 100 years. Our gunships, Cobras, finally arrived. They came in low, spitting red fire from their miniguns, a sound like a giant chainsaw tearing the sky apart. They saturated the tree line, and as fast as it started, the jungle went quiet again.
Just quiet, except for the groaning and the sound of Doc Miller, our medic, running from man to man. "I need pressure here. Somebody help me with Rhino. Where's Rhino?" The illumination flares died out, plunging us back into darkness. But the smell of cordite and copper and blood and burnt earth, that smell never left. We lost 5 men that night. Peterson was one. Rhino, the machine gunner, was another. Doc Miller was working on Surgeon Cole. The surgeon had taken shrapnel in his leg and chest from that first RPG. He was conscious, leaning against a tree, his face pale and slick with sweat in the moonlight. I walked over to him, my legs feeling like they were made of jelly. I didn't know what to say. "Sarge," I managed. He looked up at me. His breathing was shallow. You saw them, Donovan. You saw them. I should have listened."
He wasn't angry. He was just stating a fact. "You did good, kid," he whispered. "You woke up." He died before the medevac chopper arrived, his eyes open, staring at the canopy. That night changed everything. The guilt was a physical thing, heavy as my rucksack. Cole died because he didn't believe me. Peterson died because I was too scared to shoot for those first 30 seconds. I stopped being the kid from Ohio who worked in a rubber factory. I became something else. I became a survivor. I became a ghost.
The next 11 months were a blur of patrols, ambushes, heat, and rain.
You learned that the real enemy wasn't just the man in the black pajamas. It was the jungle itself. It was the ground you walked on. We learned to hate the ground. We lost a man named Scooter to a bouncing Betty, a mine designed to launch itself out of the earth and explode at waist height. It was a horrible, impersonal death. We learned to watch for the 3-step viper, a small bright green snake. They said if it bit you, you had 3 steps before your heart stopped. I don't know if it was true. No one who got bit ever took a 4th step. We weren't fighting to win a war. We weren't fighting for democracy. We were fighting for the man next to us. We were fighting to see the next mail call, the next can of C-ration peaches.
My squad became my world. There was Preacher, the quiet kid from Alabama who read his Bible every night.
Doc Miller, the medic, who had seen too much but never ever stopped running toward the sound of the gunfire. We formed a bond that was tighter than family. We never talked about home. We talked about what we'd eat when we got back. We talked about cold beer. But we never ever talked about the future. It was bad luck. I stopped writing letters home. What could I say? Dear Mom, today I watched a man step on a mine. The jungle is hot. Instead, I kept a small, sweat-stained notebook. I wrote down the names, the dates, the things I saw. I didn't know why. It just felt like someone had to. It was my own private memorial.
The original story I heard was write about the first 30 days and the last 30 days. The first 30, you're terrified you'll die. The last 30, you're convinced you'll die. Every patrol feels like a trap. Every helicopter ride feels like it's your last. You get superstitious. You don't take new risks. You don't volunteer. You just count the days, scratching them off on a helmet liner. My last week in country, our platoon walked into a hot LZ. We were taking fire before we even touched the ground. I spent my last 7 days in a muddy hole, surrounded, rationing ammunition and praying for extraction. When the relief column finally broke through, I had 24 hours left on my tour. They flew me back to Dragon Bay, the same place I'd landed, but I was not the same man. I was 180 pounds when I arrived. I was 145 pounds when I left. I was all bone and nerves and that 1,000-yard stare everyone talks about.
I came home. I landed in San Francisco.
The air was cold. People in the airport yelled at us. They called us killers. I just kept my head down, just like Cole had told me to. I went back to Akron. I tried to go back to the factory. I stood on the line, the smell of burnt rubber in the air. But I couldn't. The loud, sudden noise of the machine sounded like gunfire. The foreman yelled at me for being slow, and I almost grabbed him. I almost put him on the ground. I quit after 2 days. I couldn't be around people. I couldn't be in loud places. I bought an old Peterbilt truck. I started driving, long haul, just me and the road and the dark, quiet highways of America. For 30 years I drove. I found a kind of peace in the solitude of the cab, in the rumble of the diesel engine. It was the only place the jungle couldn't find me. I still have that notebook. I never published it. It's not for anyone else. It's for me. It's for Peterson. It's for Sergeant Cole. It's for Rhino and Scooter and Doc Miller. The other guys from the squad, the few of us who made it, we get together every few years. We meet in Vegas or Nashville. We're old men now with grandkids and bad hips. We talk about our lives. But late at night, after a few drinks, the stories come out. We don't talk about the politics. We talk about the heat. We talk about the rain. And we remember the names. Because in the end, that's all we have left. My name is Arthur Donovan, and I survived, but I never really came home.